So in this session, we're going to talk about European Gateway's lead generation process. So our lead generation process is all about reverse engineering, so working backwards. So we want to understand what is the sales KPI we need to hit in order to be successful. And then we look at how many opportunities do we need to generate at each stage of the sales funnel to actually make that happen. So let's say that for the quarter, we need to generate £250,000 worth of new business. We then work backwards and say, okay, how many opportunities do we need to create and suspect, identify, qualify, developed in order to actually achieve that goal? At the same time, we need to look at the conversion rate. So we want to say, okay, so what does our conversion rate need to be from suspects to identify, etc. This is something we use as our model to actually work with our clients to ensure that we're going in and we're hitting the KPIs for our clients. Now, we always work backwards. So in phase one, which we're talking about now, which is the aggressive digital outreach, it's all about building that pipeline for you so that we can demonstrate that we've understood your technology, we've understood how to generate leads, and then progress from phase one to phase two, which is all about going in and closing the business end to end. So how we would do that in phase two is we use value selling as our sales methodology. So we have very, very clear goals as what it is we want to achieve when we do a discovery call, when we book a follow-up call, and when we actually go in for confirmation. So we start at the very top to understand what are the business challenges or the business problems the company that we're speaking with are having. How is that related to the person that we're speaking with? And what are the consequences of failure to the company and to them personally? And that way we have their motivational drivers and we're able to push in certain buttons to actually progress to opportunities. Obviously, there's a lot more detail to the value selling methodology, but this gives you a high level overview. Now, because our end goal at European Gateway is to get you to phase two, everything that we do in phase one has phase two in mind. So we're using value selling throughout our collaboration together. So even when we're generating leads, we're still using the value selling methodology. So the CRM system, which you get access to, is actually built in the value selling way. So you would have your suspects identified, qualified, and developed. And typically these are the conversions that we see. So actually going from 10% in suspect, 30% going from identified to qualified, etc. And then you would have these connotations. So, if a deal is in suspect, then we've contacted the lead as a first meeting. Once you go to identified, we've understood the business issues that have been identified, etc., etc. Now, obviously, every technology that we work with, we have to adapt the sales process and the sales way of selling. So this is an overview of how we tend to do it from a standard perspective. However, we will go in and make the necessary adaptations. Now, again, following the value selling criteria or the process, we tend to ask these various different questions throughout the process. So, if it's identified, we'll go in and try and ask these questions to understand what is the real business issue. Once we take the opportunity to qualify, we want to understand the power. And then once it's developed, we want to understand the plan elements. And there's loads of details into this. And we actually have, once you become a client, we have videos explaining this process, and we highly recommend that we somehow embed value selling into the meetings that we take, or as we create for you, as value selling is again embedded into our lead generation process. So talking about our value selling or lead generation process, again, all built on basis of value selling, and it starts with the value message. So one thing that we do as part of creating the sales playbook is we look at what are the capabilities and differentiators that your technology actually delivers. Once we have actually highlighted each point of that, then we look at, okay, what are the problems that we are resolving for each of your capabilities and differentiators. And then we create what we call OPC questions. So these are open, probe, and confirming questions that basically highlights how we would have a conversation. So starting with an open question, probing a little bit with a probing question, and then confirming as well. And then we look at the value. So what value would each of the capabilities and differentiators actually deliver? So once we've actually gone through this exercise, and it's something which we do internally, it gives us a very, very good overview of how we're going to start having conversations with prospects. Now, depending on the style in terms of the approach or tool that we're using, we then adapt everything that we've just talked about, so the OPC questions accordingly. So if it's LinkedIn, we're using the GRAB methodology. So the GRAB methodology, it's very short, it's very concise, it's very attention grabbing. So when we create these OPC questions, we have that in mind. When we're going into email, we're then using the Basho methodology. And the Basho methodology is built on the why you now principle. So we want to have, again, a very catchy subtitle, why you, so why the prospect, why now, and we have a very good call to action as well. In the cold calling, that's where we really go and use the OPC questions. Our style in cold calling is actually to start off just asking loads of questions without really introducing yourself, and we'll start asking relevant questions that we know the prospect actually is dealing with on a day-to-day basis based on the research that we do. And then once the prospects, who are you, who are you calling from, that's the time where we would go in and actually introduce ourselves and explain who we're calling from. But already having those few questions where we can ask relevant, qualified questions of pain points that we know that prospect is having, we tend to build really good credibility and good rapport. Then that's our lead generation process. What we focus on is to hit the same prospects multiple times using different technologies. So the first thing we do is we use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and we have 5 LinkedIn accounts. We send out 500 personalized connection messages every single week to those prospects. And then we use our AI sales tool, which is connected to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So what happens is all the people that we've connected with within that given week, we're able to find the telephone numbers, mobile numbers sometimes, email addresses, socials of that individual that we've tried to connect with, or we've connected with on LinkedIn. Now, taking that data, we then look at, okay, who hasn't responded to us in a positive or negative way on LinkedIn. We put those into the email campaign. So we have 100 personalized emails that goes out every single day. And again, then we look at the data and see who haven't responded to us on LinkedIn, who has actually opened the email on email, and then we call those individuals first. And we can reference back to, we've been trying to have a conversation with you on LinkedIn or by email because of our why you now. And then it'll again be very, very personalized. And that's how we do our lead generation process throughout.